But Scalise's behind-the-scenes jockeying does not appear to be helping. Some Republicans reportedly now discussing a potential Plan B. Let's discuss with Georgia Congressman Buddy Carter. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. From Manu Raju's reporting, there are somewhere between a dozen to 24 holdouts that Scalise has to convince. What's your message to those holdouts?
Well, first of all, we need to follow the rules of the conference, and that is that if you get a majority of the majority votes, then you are our nominee, and Steve Scalise did just that. We've got an opportunity here to elect the most conservative speaker we have ever had in Steve Scalise. I'm supporting Steve Scalise, and I think he deserves to be our nominee. However, it's important to note that we've got a deep bench. We've got a lot of people who could do a great job as speaker. But Steve Scalise ran for speaker. He got the most votes. Our rules say the person who gets the most votes is going to be our nominee. We should move forward and we should elect him as our next speaker.
So you think this should be put to a floor vote right away and that Scalise should try to grind it out the way Kevin McCarthy did over 15 rounds in January?
Well, that's why we met today, and that's why we continue to meet, to try to get this done before we go on the floor and have another 15 rounds. That's what we're trying to avoid. But, I take offense to the fact that we followed the rules. He got the majority of the votes. He should be our nominee. I mean, that would be like me running in a primary and I get the most votes, but all of a sudden I'm not going to be the nominee. That doesn't make any sense at all. All of us who are here won a primary and won the majority of the votes in a primary. That's the way we got here.
I take your comparison to a primary, but the fact is he needs 217 votes to get there, and he can lose no more than 4 Republicans. If there are roughly a dozen that are hard-nosed, that's a difficult path to move forward. And from my colleague Manu Raju's reporting, it sounds like a lot of members in the conference are concerned that Scalise is not ready to drain the swamp, to revamp the way that Republicans have conducted business. What do you say to those folks who are just hard-nosed beyond, your remarks that he won the nomination?
Well, that's what we're trying to work through now, Steve, and as we speak, is meeting with a group who are opposed to him being the next speaker, and he's trying to work out the situation with them, explain to them how he feels and what his beliefs are, and they should know that already. Steve's been our majority leader, he's been our whip, and he's had years of experience with this, so I'm very comfortable that he would be a great speaker. Those who have concerns, those who have reservations, they need to go to Steve, they need to talk to him, and they need to make a decision.
Congressman, you did make a point in that first answer to say that Republicans have a deep bench and many potential candidates to become speaker. So if it's not Scalise and it's not Jim Jordan, then who is it?
Well, again, we're very blessed to have a deep bench. You talk about people like Tom Cole, you talk about people like Tom Emmer. We've got a number of people who could do a great job as speaker, but Steve Scalise is our nominee right now. He is the speaker designee, and he is the one that we are concentrating right now to get into the speaker chair, and we need to get someone in there as soon as possible. The world is counting on us to do that.
Yeah, you're alluding to the situation in the Middle East, I take it, the ongoing crisis in Israel. I do want to ask you about comments from former President Donald Trump. He is the Republican frontrunner for 2024, and he criticized Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli intelligence. He claimed that before Hamas launched their attacks this weekend, quote, thousands of people knew about it and they let this slip by. Are those remarks appropriate right now?
Well, first of all, you never want to see anyone really compliment terrorists. Terrorism is wrong. We all understand that. But I will say this. First of all, I've not been able to see the president's remarks. I've obviously been busy trying to work out this with the speaker. But I will say this. President Trump's record on Israel is clear. He has been supportive of Israel over the years. He is the one who moved the embassy to Jerusalem. So I think he's got a clear record of support for Israel. I don't think there's any question about that. The Democrats who are criticizing him, they should be looking within their own party to the anti-Semitism that exists there and not criticizing the former president.
I will say the remarks are as quoted from former President Trump, alluding to the idea that some within Israel knew that something was going to happen and did nothing about it. I will move on to something else, though. It seems all but certain we're going to see a ground invasion by the IDF inside of Gaza. What should the end goal be? How concerned are you for the potential loss of civilian life, of innocent Palestinians, women and children that had nothing to do with what we saw unfold over the weekend?
Without question, this is one of the worst atrocities I've ever witnessed in my life. And I will tell you, my thoughts and prayers are with these people. The innocent civilians who are being killed, who are being injured and mutilated here, that is of the utmost concern to all of us, particularly in the Republican conference. We are solidly behind Israel, and we don't want to see any citizens killed or injured as a result of this.
Congressman Buddy Carter, thank you so much for the time. We got to leave it there.
Thank you.
Of course.